Guitar Business Radio is the podcast for the business of guitar, where you'll always get no reviews, no demos, and no idle chatter. From players to CEOs and in between. If you have a professional or business connection to the world of guitar, this show is your window to insight and information you won't get anywhere else. I'm Jeffrey D. Brown, and I approve this message. So let's get to it. From Guitar Business Media, welcome to the 72nd episode of GBR, the show that strives to offer you something different in the world of podcasting where so much of it sounds the same. We think you have to differentiate your business or your professional work. In other words, one way or another, you have to stand out. And as you might have gleaned from the title of the show, that's something I'm going to talk about today, among other things. But first, I just want to mention something about Summer NAMM. I'm sure some of you will be there as exhibitors or just attendees. Possibly more of you will not be there for one reason or another. One of the things we're hoping to do before Summer NAMM is talk to a few people who will be attending in Nashville and find out what they're hoping to accomplish or see or do. And if we get enough interest to achieve some critical mass, we'll build something around it. So again, if you might want to participate in some fashion, it's not a fashion show or even all that fashionable. In fact, what you wear is irrelevant. This is radio, or at least it's what radio has become. If you're interested, though, reach out to us by email or call us and we'll discuss it and see if it makes sense. No guarantees, but we'd like to hear from you. Now, in all candor, this type of thing, a request like this here on the show, typically doesn't perform for a number of reasons, so I'm not holding my breath. I would probably pass out and wake up feeling stupid or worse. So let's see what happens. The ball is in your court. Take the shot. And by the way, we had a very good response to last week's episode of GBR Focus on Ciari guitars. So I appreciate that, and now we do have a few more of those shows in various stages of planning and production, so you should see more of those in the coming days. And if you'd like to see your company, brand, or product featured on a GBR Focus episode, well, just let us know. So, are you standing up, standing down, or standing out? And by the way, those are not all of the possibilities, but we'll start with those, and that'll get the ball rolling. Now, I titled the show, The Pros and Cons of Standing Out. And this is a very broad topic, but I'm going to try to discuss it in terms that are relevant to me, and as a result, hopefully, to you as well. And I have to admit, I started with the title. That's all I had. And I had that because I've been thinking a lot lately about what GBR is all about and what it should be all about. And is what it's about important? Are we making a difference? Are we standing out? And those are legitimate questions from my perspective. Maybe it's in the context of a mid-course evaluation or something like that, but I think it's valid. You have to do that from time to time. It's too easy to get into a rut or a comfort zone, which is, I think, something I talked about a few episodes ago. But it's easy to get into that and end up stopping growth or moving forward in any way. And remember, I talk a lot about staying focused on your destination. But one thing I assume is understood or implied is that you have to move in the direction of your destination. That's the forward part of it. If you stop moving, you'll never get there, no matter how many options you keep open. I've always loved that simple line that goes something like, if you're going through hell, don't stop for coffee. Keep going. There'll be a Starbucks in the next town, and you'll probably enjoy it a lot more. But isn't that the truth? We can get bogged down for all kinds of reasons and not even know it. So for me, if I have even an inkling of not moving forward, even in the broadest possible sense, I force myself to step away from the moment. Step away from the moment and take a look around. Have a coffee. Maybe not at Starbucks, but ask questions. The tough questions. The ones you've maybe been avoiding, maybe. And I say that the questions are tough sometimes because we do get invested in our ruts, in our comfort zones. And questioning has the potential to ultimately cause change or discomfort. But if the changes you make are positive, well, the discomfort passes, often quickly. That's important to note because once you actually believe that idea, it makes asking the questions that may affect change that much easier. So what are the questions? Well, with respect to this conversation, are we standing out? Are we making a difference? Can we articulate that in a clear and concise way so that those who matter to us, whether they're listeners, potential listeners, customers, potential customers, well, they can see it, feel it, and understand it. And that works for me, and it should work for you in your business or professional activities. So what about this guitar-related business world most of us are in? Are you standing out or standing in the way? There are plenty of ways we can get in the way of our own progress, and one of the ways we do that is by blaming other conditions or other people for our lack of success as we perceive it. We've all done it. We're used to it. It's easy. And we see it all the time, don't we? It manifests in many different ways. Too many to go into here, but I suspect you know what I mean. What about Einstein's rule? We hear that used a lot today. It's become very trendy, but, that's okay because it's basically right. I mean, how often do we do the same thing over and over again, somehow hoping for a different result? I've done it. Most likely you've done it. It happens often in smaller businesses, but occasionally you'll see it in larger ones that have a lot of money to waste. But the effect is usually worse for smaller companies. It can put them out of business, or at best, deplete a lot of cash, not to mention morale. Why does this happen? Well, usually because we don't stop and ask the tough questions. Are we standing out? Are we making a difference? Are we creating value? If the answer is no, then you have to be honest with yourself and commit to moving in the direction of change. Now, making change, small or large, in your destination is okay. Sometimes it happens in incremental ways. That's okay too. You're still moving forward. Now, on the other hand, if the answer is yes, well, are you communicating that properly? Does anyone know? And if the answer to that question is yes, well, are they taking action that's in your best interest? If yes, you're on your way. If no, well, you can probably repeat the answer back to me. The communication to your market is key. The underlying message has to be right. But first, you have to capture the attention of the market in order to convey that message. But if in the end, you can't compel the action that's in your best interest, the whole process fails. Now, that doesn't mean that nothing good or positive comes from the process itself. Quite often it does, in small ways that may or may not even be related. But what's the bigger destination? Is the result taking you further down the path to your destination? Because that is the simple measurement tool. You can always make it more complicated, but in the end, it has to advance the ball. So here's one way we connect the dots and see if you recognize this. Standing out is connected to capturing attention. Making a difference and creating value is connected to conveying the message. And articulating in a clear and concise way is connected to compelling the action. So what do we have here? All together now, the 3 C's. The 3 C's. Of course, many of you have heard me talk on that topic more than once. Maybe you would say ad nauseum. But it never hurts to bring it back to light in a different context. It's really simple, and it's amazing in how many places it can apply. I've been using it for years because, well, it's really simple, and it works all the time. It has to. It has to. Now, I did say in the title of the show that there were cons, not in the criminal sense, but, in the negative sense. So what are they? When is it bad to stand out? And I don't have much to say on that, mostly because, in my view, there's just not much to say. Again, it's simple. If standing out exposes or communicates something that's not in your best interest, well, what do you think? It's like the old joke. Doc, it hurts when I do this. And you know the punchline. In this case, it's don't stand out. So once again, this week's episode is a bit different. As usual, we want to hear from you. You can do that easily through the official episode page on our website at guitarbusinessradio.com or on Facebook and Twitter at Guitar Business. Or just email us directly at contact at guitarbusinessradio.com. And of course, none of that's working for you? Just call us on our GBR hotline at 888-777-2404. You can do that right now if you like, or later. Operators are currently standing up for their rights, but if you call right now, they may just answer the phone. Well, even though I love having good interviews on the show, the truth is I love doing these short, as I call them, commentary shows. It's more of a creative process, and truthfully, everybody does interviews. But don't get me wrong, the show is primarily based on doing high-quality interviews with people of stature in the business that have a great story to tell. And I've set the bar pretty high on that. There's no reason to bring people on who don't meet the basic parameters we've set up for guesthood. Guesthood, that's probably not a real word, but I like it. Seems appropriate. But I didn't always think that way. I was convinced that I needed to have a guest interview on every show, or I was failing. That turned out to be false, of course. I wasn't failing, but my belief at the time was causing me a lot of stress, which wasted a lot of my time, something that always seems to be in short supply. And I've talked about this issue in previous episodes in terms of the typical challenges for booking guests on weekly shows and whatnot, but I, too, found myself having to stop and ask the tough questions. Are we standing out? Are we making a difference? Are we creating value? And I'll be really honest with you, these are not easy questions to answer in the case of GBR, the podcast. And oddly enough, I'm starting to hear and see some other podcasters ask similar kinds of questions, and I've discovered some commonalities among others in the business of podcasting. And podcasting has exploded in the last couple of years, and that trend is continuing. Seems like everybody's getting into it. There's more and more and more. What does that mean for us? Well, back to the questions. Only this time they are, how do we stand out? How do we make a difference? How do we create value? When we figure that out, well then, how are we going to articulate those points clearly and concisely so that our audience will take the action we seek to compel? Well, let me know if you have any of your own answers. I'd love to hear them. In the meantime, stay positive. Stay focused on your destination. But so important, keep all the options open on how you're going to get there. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week on episode 73. And that's it for this episode of Guitar Business Radio. Thanks for being with us. You can stay tuned and stay in touch at guitarbusinessradio.com.